Welcome back for the final time to sunny St. Moritz, high in the Engadine Valley in Switzerland. We're nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, and above us, clear blue skies and bright sunshine streaming down for the first time in this 6th race weekend of the IBSF World Cup. And the final run of the weekend is the second and deciding heat of the 4-man bobsleigh. If you missed the first heat, actually, we haven't got time. We've only got an hour on air, so I can't explain everything that happened. But suffice to say, it was on the side of not very normal. The ice temperature, -5, bright sunshine means it was very quick at the end of the run, quicker than at the beginning of the run, and so there's been some interesting happenings. Our fastest 20 sleds start with Renault's Grantins. He was 20th place. Tentea will be off second. Liechtenstein's Martin Kranz third. And then 10th away, Brad Hall, 11th after the first of the 2 heats. But in a massively tight field where there's barely more than 300s between any of the sleds until we get to the top 2. Adam Ammour is 1,500s ahead of Cedric Follador and only 900s behind Johannes Lochner. You'll note that Francesco Friedrich is not in the top 3. Francesco Friedrich is not in the top 6. Francesco Friedrich is not in the top 10. More later. Race 6 of the IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. Underway here, the second heat in St. Moritz. Renault's Grantins of Latvia gets us underway. And the young Latvian, just 21 years of age and only his 6th World Cup start. Only his 2nd race on this track, 5:13 getaway. His first race here was in the Youth Olympic Games in 2020. He raced in a 2-man yesterday, but limited experience. Did a really good job in the first heat to get himself into Heat 2. Through the first few corners and into Snake, the left-right combination that leads you down to Sunny Corner. Nice smooth transition through the 180-degree corner that builds speed. Down into Nash and Dixon, skids down the straight, in trouble coming into Horseshoe, gets good height. Brings it out nicely through Telephone, slides into Shamrock and Devil's Dyke. And moving on down through the fast right-hand corners that lead to Gunter Sachs. And then onto the straight, down to the last 2 turns. Martin and Portago tapping away as the sled slides a lot under him. Track is quicker than when he came down the first time, 105.69. In fact, that is 100th of a second slower than his first heat. Off a start, there was 100th of a second quicker. I'm sure if you overlaid the 2 videos of those 2 runs, they would be completely and utterly different. But he makes the cut, and he will have another top 20 finish. Just once in Eagles, he failed to make the cut in the 4-man. Oh, and in Winterberg last week as well. But here in St. Moritz, finished well in 15th place in the 2-man. Skidding down into Horseshoe. You need the big height. You need to be right up by the woodwork there to drive out. He had to steer off pretty hard. And the more you steer, the more the runners dig into the ice and slow you down. Just ahead of him in the first heat, 0.08 of a second, was Tentea of Romania. With Constantin Dinescu, Andrei Nisa, his 2-man brakeman, and Mihai Pacianu. And Tentea with a good run. Good speed towards the end of the run, came 23rd in the start draw. Drove himself into 19th off a 24th best start. 5:26 in the second heat, 5:22 in the first. And you've got to be smooth through kink 1 and kink 2. These long, flat straights. And then down to wall. 3 pressures from the centrifugal force in wall. Little run down into Snake 1 and Snake 2. Another short straight down to Sunny. Come out of here straight and you're into Nash and then Dixon. And that leads you up to Horseshoe. He got good height in the first heat, not bad in the second. Hits before Telephone, falls off Telephone. Through Shamrock and Devil's Dyke, gathering it back up now. But 1400s behind. Halving that deficit, better speed from the Romanian. Both Romanian sleds absolutely flying at the bottom of the track in this 4-man race. They're not built by Romania, they are using BTC sleds built in Latvia like a lot of teams do, but across the line, 105.73 to take a lead of just 0.04 of a second. So not as fast down as Renault's Grantins, and surviving on the fat of the first heat. So 19th place there for Mihai Tentea of Romania. At least that, unless he picks a few more off. And Tentea last year, 15th in race 1, tied for 17th in race 2. And brought it hard down out of Horseshoe. Hit the wall before telephone, that puts you late on telephone, you fall off the exit, and the body's there rocking the sled around. Georgeta Popescu, their female compatriot, helping with the sled. She was racing in the women's race this morning. Next up for Liechtenstein, Martin Kranz with Lawrence Lenhair, Tim Kessler and David Schurfen. And the young driver from Liechtenstein, just 23. 27th of our 28 starters today, came down in 18th place. 5:27, just about keeps it off the wall. 5:23 in the first heat. Third best start, third best velocity. But he does drive the sled well. First time they raced here in the World Cup, they actually didn't get all 4 crew members in. I'm sure you will see online today lots of coverage of Chris Horn's run, where only the driver made it into the sled. That was some pretty sketchy times for Chris Horn. Got it down in one piece though. 1100's up, building speed. Martin Kranz, young driver from Liechtenstein, with top speed in the forest now. That will help extend that advantage up to 2/10 in front now. He only had 400s over Mihai Tentea, and Tentea, well respected as a driver in his 32nd World Cup race. Martin Kranz in only his 11th in the 4-man. Across the line, 1800s up, 105.59. So there is the flag of Liechtenstein, the red and blue blocks, and the crown, and the tiny kingdom of Liechtenstein, Principality of Liechtenstein. And these guys, they really outpunch their own weight. Kranz is a talented young driver. He's got lots of potential. But a little bit like Monaco, a tiny talent pool of athleticism to draw from. What do you know about Liechtenstein? They make postage stamps and there's lots of banking, neither of which are necessarily hugely athletic backgrounds. However, next up is China's Li Chunjian. Now, I talked about how close this field is all the way up the top 20, 200s faster than Kranz. And Li with Zhang Miaoyan, Ye Jilong, and Ding Yunda. This is a well-rehearsed crew. They've raced together a lot this season. Missed the cut in the 2-man. His last race here, he was 16th, 17th in the first heat. 5:15, push bar is out. Driver's going to have to attend to that. He does, but only once the sled is going straight, because you have to relinquish control of the steering to take your hand off and press that little button that drops the push bar. You can't do that in the corners. So off the 5:15 start, 1400s up, and they remain 1400s up. 200s from the first heat, 1200s from their second start. Rocking and rolling between Nash and Dixon, skidding up to Horseshoe, hits the woodwork, comes down well, but the time has gone with that big skid. Only the third best speed. Kranz was fastest there. Climbing back up to second place, ahead of Mihai Tentea. 1800ths of a second, first to second between Kranz and Tentea. And at the moment, Li is halfway in there, but not with as much speed as the leaders. Or Tentea. Is he third? He's second at the line. 100th ahead of Mihai Tentea. But Liechtenstein remain in the leaders' box. And one of the smallest nations on the planet picks up a spot from the biggest. So Li Chunjian slips 1 and was within 100 of dropping 2 spots there. Out of Dixon, tags the wall, and then the sled gets into a skid. When you need to be on the right-hand side, the nose was heading left, so he had to take it up high, tapped on the wall.
Ready to go.
and then had to drive hard to get it off, and that takes speed out as well. Next up for Latvia, Jēkabs Kalenda. 9th fastest at the start. A rocky ride to 16th at the bottom. Lauvskamp Manus, Mats Mignus, and Anis Bebris in the sled. Expect another low 5 start. He needs to have a tidier run. 5:09 first heat, 5:09 the second. Look how low he's sitting on these short straights, because it is so low speed. You don't want to be attracting the air in any way, causing any drag. 2300s up over Martin Kranz at the start, 3700s up now with that start velocity. But again, as in the first heat, the back of the sled not following the nose. It's sliding around. Falls out of Nash into Dixon, slides out of Dixon, skidding up to Horseshoe. Height is good, brings it down nicely into Telephone. Not bad into Shamrock, but rattles the wall at Devil's Dyke. 4/10 up on Liechtenstein. Best speed at that stage, but he's knocked that out of the sled. Still 4/10 up. Out of Gunter Sachs. Down into Martineau and Portago. 4/10 in the bank and across the line, 4200s up, 105.22. Well, that is a much better run than his first heat. How much better? 105.22 would have left him 100th ahead of the current 4th place sled of Patrick Baumgartner. So that would have been a top 4 run if he'd been able to produce that in the first heat, and he absolutely was not. But again, watch the back of the sled. It's driving around, it's sliding about and pushing the nose out as he came out of Dixon. Good height, watch the runner tips, drives hard, big steer, cuts lots of ice, and then releases the steer, takes it down nicely into Telephone, but out of Shamrock, hard hit on the wall, dragging speed out of the sled. Better, but he still won't be happy. What about Dave Wesselink of the Netherlands? Janko Francic, Jelen Francic, who was 8th with him in the 2-man yesterday, and Tim Acosta on the back of the Dutch sled. And Wesselink with a really good day yesterday in the 2-man. This is only his 9th 4-man World Cup start. They take a long time to get in off a 5:08 getaway. 400s up on the Latvian sled. They started 5:10 in the first heat. They pushed it just a little further, skidding around at the back of the sled again. I think it's a sunnier, warmer afternoon than everybody is expecting. The track is a little freer flowing, a little slicker. And the back of the sled moving around behind Wesselink. So he's having to make the steers he wants to get the front up, but also allow for the fact that the back is doing a lot of the driving. There's 400 kilos of flesh in there, moving the back around. 5th best speed, tiny margin still over Jēkabs Kalenda. He only had 300s from the first heat. 4th best speed, a whisker quicker than Kalenda. Does he come straight? Kind of, down into the final 2 corners. This is too close to call. 100th in it, 200s in it, 105.23, 100 slower than Kalenda. He was 300s in front in the first heat, so he holds on by 200ths of a second. 200ths of a second over 2 miles of ice. So watch them push it all the way down to the first corner. Look at the drive lines at the bottom of your screen. Drivers in, hands not on the steering gear until they get to kink 1, and the sled just goes up the kink and slides a little bit. They're all still loading out of kink 1, then the driver's push bar comes in.
Sliding with friends and Moritz.
Yeah, well, it is the champagne of thrills. Now then, we get to Francesco Friedrich. This should mean there are only 3 sleds left. Friedrich is 14th after the first run. Fastest start, 4:98. But a disastrous first corner load. The push bar stayed out halfway down the run. 4:99, much better. Now, nobody else started below 5 in the first heat. They're probably not going to in the second. The question is, Friedrich was half a second off the lead, 4,900s back. How high can he climb? His last, quote, disaster was a 12th place finish in Sigulda in the two-man in February 2023. Other than that, he's pretty much a top 3 finisher every morning he wakes up. 3,400s up. Best speed, 110.9 kilometers an hour. Again, the back of the sled moving around a lot. 123, 76.59 miles an hour. Out of Gunter Sachs. Much nicer looking run from Francesco Friedrich. They could be in the leader's box for a while, and it is a new track record. Of course it is. It's Friedrich. Never, ever, ever count out Francesco Friedrich. Half a second clear of the Dutch. He had 400s in hand. He's not multiplied it by 10, he's multiplied it by 11, that margin. Good stuff from the boys. This time the 499 is a clean load. Friedrich is in maybe a step earlier. Gets in, push bar in, hands on the D-rings. He's driving it in the first kink, which he wasn't in the first run. Doesn't get maximal height there. You saw the steer, then straightens it up, down into telephone, building that speed. But look at the back, sliding up the corner as he brings the nose off. The back was definitely doing a degree of the driving there. So Francesco Friedrich leads. Now then, how long does he stay in the leader's box? Well, Taylor Austin had 100th of a second in hand. So anybody that wants to beat Friedrich now pretty much has to beat the track record. Keaton Brugling, Mike Evelyn, Shaq Murray-Lons, 5:06. Great getaway in the first heat. 5:07, that's another epic start from the Canadian crew. They will be very, very happy with that. 4th fastest start in the first heat. And they ended up in 13th place. Taylor Austin just behind his own teammate who comes up next, Pat Norton. Again, little rocking and rolling through Snake. And again, little late off Sonny, late off Nash. Little left coming into Horseshoe. Not bad through telephone. Decent from Shamrock to Devil's Dyke. Second best speed. 700s behind Friedrich from the start. 2500s behind him now. Second best speed. Friedrich was 76.6, 75.6 for the Canadian. Friedrich with a dozen more race weekends on this track than Taylor Austin, and there's the difference, 105.21. So 4,500s back, but in second place, holding his position ahead of Dave Wesselink of the Netherlands as the boys step out of the sled. Well, when you are in front of Francesco Friedrich, it's not common to expect to remain there. And despite his best efforts, Taylor Austin, little late there, coming into the Gunter Sachs curve. Had to take a second sort of stab at getting into Martineau as well. He said drifting offline. So next up is his own teammate, Pat Norton. And these boys started 5:14. Lucas Stoikos, Mark Zanet, and Johan Eskrik Parkinson on the back of the sled. 12th place after the first heat. 300s ahead of their teammates. 5:17, so they start a little slower as well, but still a 10th in the hole compared to Taylor Austin and his crew. And so their first heat advantage of 300s is not helping them. From 1400s back at the start to 2800s back. Double tap coming out of Sonny. Out of Dixon, slides against the wall. Good height. Not bad into telephone. Through Shamrock. Gets tapped a little onto Devil's Dyke, but the speed is good. Don't forget his own teammate, Taylor Austin, 4,500s behind the leader. So he's dropping behind him, might drop behind David Wesselink and Jacobs Kalenda. It's only half a second back to 4th place. Is this going to be fourth or fifth at the line? It is fourth, tied with Jekic's Kalenda. So Friedrich and the crew stay in the leader's box. This is only to be expected. 105.33 in the second heat, 700s better than his first run for Pat Norton of Canada. And Norton's best on this track, 2 13th place finishes. He was 13th in the first heat, but he's dropped to 4th place with 12 to go. And again, the back of the sled doing a lot more, I think, than the drivers were expecting. Quite a long way down. Last year's race winner in the four-man, Brad Hall. Ben Simons moving in place of Leon Greenwood, and then Big T, Taylor Lawrence and Greg Cackett on the back of the sled. Just precautionary, says Coach Graham Richardson there in the background. Leon okay, but maybe with a little bit of a tweak. So started 5:08 in the first heat. Let's see if the change around makes any difference. Simons in at 2, 5:07, just a whisker quicker. And Brad Hall needs a big drive here. Took the gold in the second of the 2 races last year here in St. Moritz, and he's been a serial medalist on this track. Got his first 2-man medal yesterday, but a little skid down into Sonny and skidding through Sonny again. Fat runners on the back of the sled, maybe making it move around a little more than expected. Falls off Nash, has to tidy it up out of Dixon as well. Needs height, not bad. Good telephone, falls off the end. Third best speed. Has been building speed all the way down through the forest over the week. Second best speed. 1600s, closing the gap down on Francesco Friedrich. He's beaten him in straight fights before. Best speed of all. This could be very close. Is he going to take the lead from Friedrich? A 10th back. So 104.92 for Brad Hall, and that is faster than the race leader went in the first heat. And he and Taylor Lawrence with the crest of the Cresta run on their helmets. Decent height in Horseshoe. He was a bit left coming in after that skid out of Dixon. And then down into Telephone. Little late on Telephone means he was a little late off. The flop there coming into Shamrock. So it is Francesco Friedrich from Brad Hall and Taylor Austin. 10 down, 10 to go here in St. Moritz. In the top 10 for the first time this season in the four-man, Frank Del Duca of the USA, with Josh Williamson, Boone Niederhofer and Dylan Gilbert on the back of the sled. So trying a new lineup and also just trying to get his mojo back. 24th World Cup start in four-man as a driver, 16th and 11th here last year. So this marks not just an improvement on last year, but a big improvement on this season. 5:11 to get away, exactly what they managed in the first heat. Quiet through kink 1, down to kink 2. And then into wall, a little early onto wall. Quite wavy through there, taps on the exit into Snake. Out of Sonny, must come straight, kind of doesn't. Skidding around into Nash, into Dixon. And then Horseshoe rears up in front of you like a tsunami of ice. Nice out of Horseshoe. Not bad from Telephone to Shamrock, into Devil's Dyke, little late maybe. And then into Nameless, now he's back with the plan. 7th best speed, but from the 3rd fastest start, or the 3rd at the start, he's out to 6 now on the splits. So he's losing ground, didn't come nicely out of Sachs, tapping all the way down the straight. And between Martineau and Portago, double taps, free fall down to 7th place. Shakes his head. Well, only 900 slower than the first heat, but the track clearly felt very different from Frank Del Duca's point of view. He was 24th out in the first heat. It was quick then, but he just did not have a handle on it this time. Again here, look, that's the exit of wall down to Snake. And here in Horseshoe, only halfway up the corner, and that means look at those runners, maxed out. They're really hauling it down. And as a result, hard telephone, flops off the exit, skids into Shamrock, and just wiping off that speed. Well, he goes to congratulate Friedrich's boys, and still queries about how he's going to get speed out of the four-man. Friedrich leads with 9 to go, and this is Austria's Jakob Mandelbauer. Mandelbauer, one of the younger drivers in the field, 27, but only 13 World Cup races under his belt in four-man. 22nd last year, and then 9th on the second race. So he's got a great opportunity to at least match his personal best, but to do so, he has got to beat Friedrich. 5th best start, 3rd best velocity, a 10th back on Francesco Friedrich. And these are not words that Jakob Mandelbauer would have expected to hear being said about himself necessarily when you come to this track. 3rd on the splits. Brad Hall is a 10th behind Friedrich. Mandelbauer 1500s back, good height. Not bad, tapped in telephone, a big skid, even bigger than the first heat. And that wipes out your speed. 2 tenths back becomes 3 tenths back, 6th best speed becomes 11th best speed. He's only on 12 sled down. 4th on the splits, 11th best speed. Is he going to be 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th at the line? He's 3rd. He found something at the bottom. That's a great recovery from Jakob Mandelbauer. So Friedrich and Hall rise together like the bubbles in your glass of champagne. They're 1st and 2nd. Mandelbauer moves into 3rd by 200s ahead of Taylor Austin. Oh, and Jakob Mandelbauer was not moving when the rest of the team left the station. Well, despite that, they actually had a 300s better start. Maybe he shouldn't push. But here, look at this. Telephone to Shamrock, touching both walls at the same time. Well, despite that start, he's in 3rd place behind 2 former winners on this track. Next up, Timo Rohner. His 2 best World Cup results were here in Switzerland last year. Rohner finishing in 6th and 7th places. 5:20 start in the first heat. An 8th place finish off the 23rd fastest start. 5:21, a whisker slower. Almost everybody, apart from, well, I think even including Friedrich, went 100 slower than their first heat. So this is all about the drive now, and what the Swiss chose in terms of runners. What they've done in terms of setup to try and balance the sled perfectly for the driver and for the conditions. Nice out of Sonny, good Nash and Dixon, but takes a tap. Now that moves him over onto the right line for Horseshoe. He wasn't particularly high, but it was relatively clean out of Telephone. Out of Shamrock, top speed, 3400s back, but he is starting to bring it back. 3200s back, a whisker quicker than Friedrich. Hall fastest at the bottom, 91.1 miles an hour. That's quicker, 91.57 miles an hour. And it will be 3rd at the line for Timo Rohner with 7 to go. So a top 10 finish guaranteed for the 3rd race in a row here in Switzerland. Well, he loses 2 spots, but honestly, Friedrich and Hall should not have been so far back in the first heat. So that was pretty much par for Timo Rohner and his crew. 23rd at the start in the first heat, 8th at the bottom. This was just rocking around a little more. But would he have had enough to catch Brad Hall? Without those mistakes, maybe so. There's Timo, 3rd place with 7 to go. Francesco Friedrich leads, and here is Markus Treichl. Treichl, Sascha Stepan, Markus Sommer and Christian Huber, 5 dead starts. Second fastest start of the first heat. And still a tiny margin over Francesco Friedrich because the field is so tight. 5:01, great starting, 1400s in hand. That's not a big margin over 1,500 meters, a mile of ice compared to Friedrich, but the second fastest start to Friedrich's coup, but better velocity. So they actually put more accelerative force into the sled. 1,400s up, that's what he had at the start. Little rock out of Nash into Dixon. Gets a better exit out of Dixon than Friedrich did, good height. Drives himself beautifully down into Telephone. 800s, not as quick as the German sled. Going to be very close to level here. 500ths of a second. Friedrich had more speed. Not much, but more. Good run down out to Gunter Sachs. Third best speed. Is it enough? Is he going to lead? Does he beat Friedrich at the line? Yes, he does! 1:04.89. Not as fast down as Friedrich, but he takes the lead away. The Austrian has the lead with 6 sleds to go. Francesco Friedrich will be no worse than 8th, but maybe no better. And there is Alex Schuller going to congratulate the crew. Had to drive it quite hard from that height. Actually drove it a little too hard, I think. Taps before Telephone. No, he doesn't. Came off Telephone about as well as almost anybody we've seen. And Shamrock Devil's Dyke, not a bad transition either. So there's Markus Sommer, the man they call Oppa, Grandad. Next up, Roman Heinrich, Niels Blairon, Antoine Rieu, and Dorian Ottaville. 200ths of a second faster than Treichl down the track. 1,200 slower at the start. They started 5:12 in the first heat to 5 dead from the Austrians and still beat them to the line. In and down. Ooh, and a little bit of wriggling. Don't touch the wall. It doesn't. 5:10 start. So they're in the red. 9th best speed from the 8th best start, so they didn't put as much energy in as the Austrians, so that gap grows from 700s to 2700s. It's going entirely the wrong way, and the sled is sliding around a lot at the back. Heinrich drifting off every corner. Needs to have a good horseshoe. He did in the first run. Good height, good exit, nice Telephone. Really nice Telephone, Shamrock. Nice Shamrock Devil's Dyke. Best speed of all for the French sled, but he's nearly 4/10 back. 3/10 back, still faster. Ooh, a little offline into Sachs. Got in early. It's not going to be enough, is it? Roman Heinrich is going to drop behind. He does. Drops 4 spots, and it is a top 6 finish guaranteed now for Markus Treichl. Well, disappointing second run for Roman Heinrich. His last race here last year in 14th place, and he's currently in 5th with 5 to go, so it will be a top 10, but that ain't a top 6. Best result here on this track in 4-man in his entire career for Roman Heinrich has been an 11th place finish. He will beat that today, will be no worse than 10th. It's another personal best for the man who unretired 2 years ago, because the next games will be in the French Alps on his home track at La Plagne. So 5 to go. Treichl, Friedrich, Hall, the top 3 covered by 1200s as we get to our top 2nd Swiss sled, Mickey Vogt, with Dominik Hufschmidt, Andreas Haas, and Amadou Ndiaye on the back of the sled. 300s in hand over Treichl, who was 2 sleds behind them in the first run, and they start 5:07, 600s back. Second best velocity off the 3rd best start. They put energy into the sled. 600s back. Little wavy through through wall. Pretty tidy through snake. Not sliding around as much as some of the sleds we've been watching, Mickey Vogt. Nice Nash and Dixon. Good run up to Horseshoe, and this could be what takes him into the lead. Little late off Horseshoe. Not bad from Telephone to Shamrock. Only the 7th best speed though in the green, but Treichl was faster. 300ths of a lead. This is going to be another close finish. Down into Martineau and Portago. A tiny tap on the wall. 100th or two. 1100s in front. 104.81 run, and he will be no worse than 5th. So a decent run for Mickey Vogt. 4th and 8th last year. And he leads with 4 to go. Last year's first race, his best 4-man result on this track. Sasha Stepan goes to offer his congratulations. And Vogt and his crew, a 5:07 getaway. Not as quick as the Austrians, but he had enough in the drive. Looked like the sled just went where he wanted it a little more than Treichl and quite a lot of the others. So Mickey Vogt leads with 4 to go. Can Patrick Baumgartner move up onto the podium for Italy? Baumgartner, 2800ths off the lead, 400ths out of the medals. 5:09 the getaway, 5:09 in the first heat, in his 50th 4-man World Cup race. Can Patrick Baumgartner put himself in amongst the medalists for only a 3rd time in his 4-man career? You can already see how tiny the margin is going to be with Mickey Vogt. He was only 200ths in front after the first run down the track. Now he's level, but not as smooth in Nash and Dixon. Needs a brilliant Horseshoe, great height, taps the wood, comes down nicely. Smooth Telephone, smooth Exeter Shamrock, best speed, still tied with the Swiss. In the green now, decent speed, 100th. Oh, little high and late, and that puts him in trouble out of Sachs. Dropping behind again, it's not going to be by much. We might have a dead heat with 3 to go. We do not.
Let's go.
Last 4-man World Cup of the season for Mickey Vogt. He will not race in Altenburg. He's going to do Europe Cup in Innsbruck instead. And Baumgartner slips back. Treichl 3rd, Friedrich 4th, Hall 5th with 3 to go. 1 Swiss and 2 German sleds remain. Big height from Baumgartner. And that high, late bridge left him late in and out of Sachs. And that's all it took. So Baumgartner will get a top 5 finish, and that will be his best result on this track. Now for Cedric Follador, can we get another Swiss medal this weekend? Melanie Hassler has been on the podium in the monobob and in women's bobsleigh with 2 silver medals and 2 European golds. 5:10 getaway from Follador and his crew. Luca Rolli, Omar Fergala and Tim Allen give him another couple of hundreds at the start, but it's meandering around. Are they shuffling in the back? 500s back. Only the 10th best start. They've gone from 300s up to 500s back on teammates Mickey Vogt. 1100s back. This is for the first of the medals. 2 sleds remain, both German. Ooh, little rattle, and another little rattle. Only the 4th best speed. We've got a dead heat for second. Baumgartner and Treichl, 1100s back. Friedrich, 1300s back. He's going to drop behind all of them, I think. Cedric Follador, not going to get a medal here, not going to get a top 4 finish, not going to get a top 6 finish. Across the line, 5th place with 2 to go. Mickey Vogt in the medals here in St. Moritz. Vogt with 2 bronze medals in his career, and this is a first in St. Moritz, his 3rd bronze medal at least here. And Cedric Follador just could not produce the magic in the second heat that he did in the first. Gave it everything, just a fraction back. So Mickey Vogt leads. There's Cedric Follador saying, well done, boys. The Swiss will get a medal. We will not have a German podium sweep for yet another season in St. Moritz. But what about Adam Ammour with brother Issam at 2, Joshua Tasher at 3, Alexander Schaller in the middle on the brakes at 4. 900ths off the lead. It's him and Hansi Lochner battling for gold. 5 flat. They started 5:03 in the first heat. And a good run from King 1 to King 2. Little correction there to keep it off the wall. Tiniest of runner checks. 3 tenths up. It's not about the Swiss. It's about gold. It's about beating Lochner. The rivalry within the German team is so intense. They know unless you can beat your 2 other teammates, you can't possibly win. Ammour, good height. Nice telephone, nice transition into Shamrock, taps into Devil's Dyke, but the best speed we've seen. Through tree and bridge and up to leap, and then clean to Gunter Sachs. This could be a new track record. It'll be a resounding lead for Adam Ammour. Nearly half a second clear already, and at the line, it is a new track record. 1 to go. Is Adam Ammour going to win his first race in the 4-man at the most historic track of them all? A great start, 5 dead, 5:03 in the first heat. Lots of speed, lots of power, in and down. And look at the height here. Right up by the woodwork, late, so he takes a big steer, releases, drops down nicely into telephone. If that's not going to get gold, it's because Hansi Lochner has produced something, again, extra special. Torsten Margis at 2, then Jörn Wenzel and Georg Fleischhauer, the beast at the back. Started 5:07 in the first heat. In and down. Are we down to 5 dead? It's 5:05. So he has a lead, a tiny lead, and now he has to outdrive Ammour to hang on to it. Only the 3rd best velocity, but it was the 4th fastest start. 100 is the lead. Ammour started 500s quicker, was only 900s back. Lochner needs to be absolutely brilliant now. 100th in it. Not a bad exit into Nash and Dixon. Little left coming into Horseshoe. Late height. Nice telephone. Level. Nice Shamrock. Not bad, but Ammour was better. Ammour was faster. Lochner's behind. Can he produce the magic, or is this going to be the first 4-man win for Germany's Adam Ammour? Lochner is still behind. 2nd best speed. Ammour was fastest, and the winner is Adam Ammour! Johannes Lochner takes the silver. Mickey Vogt of Switzerland takes the bronze. But the story today is Germany's Adam Ammour has his first ever 4-man World Cup win. Good height, late from Hansi Lochner again. Couple of steers just to roll it out into telephone. But Ammour was tidier below Horseshoe, and that carried the speed. A decent telephone, but a little skid into Shamrock, a tap into Devil's Dyke, but he's there with Adam. Isam's on the floor. The first win for the crew. Adam Ammour, Issam Ammour, his older brother, Joshua Tasha, and Alexander Schaller. And it is a first World Cup four-man win for Adam Ammour. So Lochner takes his third silver medal on his track, but today, the big one for Ammour. And this has been a tough track for Adam Ammour, crashed out of contention in the two-man World Championships in 2023. It's been a bit of a bogey track. How fitting that it's this place, the greatest of them all, where he takes that first win. Hansi Lochner, the silver, and Mickey Vogt, the bronze. And that is your European Championship top three as well, ahead of Baumgartner, Treichl, and Friedrich, Follador, Hall, and Rohner, and Roman Heinrich rounding out the top 10. Great result for Jakob Mandelbauer. Really good run in the first heat and ends up with an 11th place finish, comfortably his best here. And then the two Canadians, the top non-Europeans, Taylor Austin and Pat Norton. Frank Deluca fading in the second heat. Good run from Martin Kranz as well from Liechtenstein. And that is it. We leave with beautiful scenery all around us here, high in the Engadine. And we say au revoir to Graubünden and to Samoritz for another season. Well, there is your podium. Adam Ammour and his crew, Johannes Lochner and his crew, and Mickey Vogt and the boys. And that's the final World Cup race of the season for Vogt. Everybody else packs up and heads off to Saxony and to Altenburg, Francesco Friedrich's home track. Lochner still leads in the four-man from Friedrich, with Ammour closing on France in second place. Then Patrick Baumgartner ahead of Brad Hall and Marcus Treichl. So one more race in the World Cup season. And the decisions for those who do and don't qualify for the Olympic Games will be made in the next couple of weeks. And then in the middle of February, we start with skeleton and then bobsleigh in Milano Cortina 2026 at the Pista Olimpica Eugenio Monti, or the less romantically named Cortina Sliding Centre. Well, from Samoritz, the oldest and most famous of them all, a two-time Winter Olympic venue, we will head to Altenburg, and there is your European Championship result. Adam Ammour is the European champion, ahead of Johannes Lochner, with Mickey Vogt taking the bronze medal. Last year, Lochner was the champion from Friedrich, with Hall and Vogt tied for the bronze, and this year it is Adam Ammour who has the gold. So congratulations to Ammour and his crew, and again, as ever, to the track workers and to the organisation here in Samoritz. It's always a fabulous place to come and race, and boy, it has produced some excitement today. Until next week in Altenburg in Saxony, from me, Martin Haven, and the rest of the crew here, it is goodbye, and we will see you next Friday as we get underway with the final skeleton races of the season.